And I'm sorry I chuckled when you talked about the IT at the IRS. The program is 35 years behind schedule, 35 years, and is wasting $2 billion a year.
That's why we put the extra money in, Mr.
No. The extra money went in for bodies, and whistleblowers acknowledged that standards were being lowered to bring in new agents. The money is not the issue here. It is how the money is spent.
That's exactly right. We agree on that, how the money is spent. And the last point that I would make...
It has been spent poorly.
Let me make this last point, Mr. Secretary. Do you agree with the idea that in 2017, that the federal government, emanating from this committee, borrowed $2.3 trillion for that tax cut?
What I believe is that everyone on the Democratic side voted for the biggest blowout for the deficit in history, and that we are suffering from that. This past tax year, we will have between a 6.5 and 6.7% deficit, so I find it very difficult to be lectured to by people who created the largest deficit in history when we were not at war and not in a recession.
What happens when a Treasury Secretary walks into Congress with a calculator, a sense of humor, and zero patience for nonsense? You get fireworks. Today's hearing turned into a complete roast session as Sec. Bessent torched Mr. Neal and the Democrats over what he called fraudulent financial practices, fake math, and government budgeting that would make a used car salesman blush. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next political meltdown.
Thank you, Chairman. So maybe we could stick to a couple of facts here, as previously discussed, and that is that if you made $1 million last year, you're going to get about $84,000 in tax relief with this bill. If you made under $50,000, you are likely to get about $1 a day. The President said that we'd have 90 trade agreements in 90 days. We're 89 short because of the manner in which some of these allies have been offended. We want trade balance for sure, but we also want to make sure that it's done in a manner that will last, not subject to the whims of the administration. I understand, Mr. Secretary, that you don't agree with some of the economic forecasts that have been projected as it relates to the big, beautiful bill. So Penn Wharton says this bill will add trillions of dollars to the national debt. The Yale Budget Lab says this will add trillions of dollars to the national debt. Well, we're 0 for 2. But how about Maya McGinnis, not exactly known for their socialist leanings? They say this will add trillions of dollars to the national debt. Well, let's go to the Tax Foundation, hardly a left-leaning political organization. They say this will add trillions of dollars to the national debt because the money's going to be borrowed. Here, facts should matter. The advice of experts should matter. We have seen the bond market's reaction to some of these proposals. They're jittery. But you know what? In this committee, we listen. The administration is putting its head in the sand on this debt issue. The facts are going to be hard to escape. So let me turn to the impact of budget reconciliation as it relates to health care. In addition to adding trillions to the U.S. debt, the bill will cause 16 million Americans to lose part or all of their health insurance, according to CBO. We know what the consequence will be of losing health insurance for the American family. More visits to the emergency room, more postponed treatments, more bankruptcies that will come because of it. The problems that people have with health insurance only mean that later on the problems pile up. Bad health, the challenge that is now going to occur for our rural hospitals, surely many of which will be forced to close. Cutting more than $1.5 trillion from Medicaid, Medicare, and the Affordable Care Act certainly will mean job losses. No industry can sustain $1.5 trillion in cuts while we borrow money for a big tax cut that, despite what has been said here today, still favors people overwhelmingly at the top. Let me say, in regard to the testimony, Mr. Secretary, that you've offered, there's another key consideration here. You're suggesting that the improvements at the IRS have all taken place in the last 6 months? It's because of what we did with the Inflation Reduction Act. That's why the improvements have taken place, the technological upgrades that have taken place as well. We have a pretty good understanding of this. We want to use artificial intelligence for better tax collections. But all of this just happened in the last 6 months. That's our understanding based upon the testimony. The Commonwealth Fund, cuts to Medicaid and SNAP are going to lead to the loss of over 1 million jobs. The American Hospital Association estimates that tens of thousands of hospital jobs will be lost as a result of these cuts. Furthermore, a professor at Yale has said that this will conservatively cause tens of thousands of unnecessary deaths. Worse health care, job losses, more borrowed money. The American people deserve considerably better than what we're being told. But let me offer this challenge, Mr. Secretary. We would be prepared on the minority side to work with the administration and direct tax relief back to people under $400,000 of joint income, as opposed to the suggestion that is being offered here today. And if you disagree with the number that I offered about tax relief for somebody who made $1 million last year, let me give you the last 30 seconds to speak to that.
The Representative Neal, I have great respect for you. We've had good conversations, but respectfully, if I weigh 1,000 pounds and you weigh 50, and I gain 10 pounds, or I gain 10%, I have gained 100,000. That during President Trump's first tax cuts, the share of taxes paid by the high end of taxpayers, increased by more than 7%. And I'm sorry I chuckled when you talked about the IT at the IRS. The program is 35 years behind schedule, 35 years, and is wasting $2 billion a year.
That's why we put the extra money in, Mr. Secretary.
No. The extra money went in for bodies, and whistleblowers acknowledged that standards were being lowered to bring in new agents. The money is not the issue here. It is how the money is spent.
That's exactly right. We agree on that, how the money is spent. And the last point that I would make...
It has been spent poorly.
Let me make this last point, Mr. Secretary. Do you agree with the idea that in 2017, that the federal government, emanating from this committee, borrowed $2.3 trillion for that tax cut?
What I believe is that everyone on the Democratic side voted for the biggest blowout for the deficit in history, and that we are suffering from that. This past tax year, we will have between a 6.5 and 6.7% deficit, so I find it very difficult to be lectured to by people who created the largest deficit in history when we were not at war and not in a recession.
So I negotiated with Secretary Mnuchin the pandemic relief bill. If that's the reference point, that's where overwhelmingly the money went. That was not a bad infusion of money. It worked. The Economist magazine and the Financial Times said in January the American economy was the envy of the world. I yield back my time, Mr. Chairman.
Well, the spending was not the envy of the world.
Let's break this down. Mr. Neal opens the hearing, attempting to lecture Bessent on tax relief and deficits. He comes in hot, drops stats, and tries to sound like the human version of a calculator, but then Bessent responds like, "Cute numbers, wrong math." When Neal bragged about knowing the facts, Bessent essentially replied, "If your data was a car, I wouldn't even buy it used." The Democrats were ready for a debate. Bessent came for a financial funeral. Neal tries to paint Republicans as gifting millionaires $84,000 tax breaks. Bessent smirks, yes, smirks, and fires back with a food analogy. If I weigh 1,000 pounds and you weigh 50 and I gain 10 pounds, I gain more. Doesn't mean it's unfair. It's just math. Translation: rich people pay more taxes because they're rich. Neal's argument just got diet-sized. Democrats brag about IRS improvements like they just launched NASA. Bessent can't help it. He actually laughs. He says, The IRS tech system is 35 years behind schedule and burning $2 billion a year, doing nothing. Improvements? He jokes. They need a time machine, not more agents. Neil tries to defend it. Bessent shuts it down. It's not the money. It's how you spend it. Boom. Mic drop. Democrats try to blame Republicans for borrowing. Bessent turns into Judge Judy with numbers. He points at the left and basically says, "You created the biggest deficit in history when we weren't at war or in a recession." The Democrats try to pivot. Bessent blocks them like a bouncer at a nightclub. "You don't get to lecture us when you maxed out America's credit card." Neil looked like someone just turned off his Wi-Fi. Democrats warn that cuts will kill rural hospitals, destroy jobs, and wipe out healthcare. Bessent waves off the doomsday movie script. He basically says, wasteful programs don't save lives, they just waste money faster. According to him, Democrats want to keep pouring billions into broken systems because it sounds nice in speeches, not because it helps people. Then he ends with a straight punch. If we don't control waste, we can't help anybody. Oof. Somebody get the Democrats aloe vera. By the end, Second Bessent didn't just disagree with Democrats. He roasted their math, mocked their budgeting, and exposed their spending habits like an accountant with a grudge. Mr. Neil walked in looking ready to lecture. He walked out looking like he needed a financial tutor. If you love fiery breakdowns with facts, humor, and zero political baby talk, do one thing for me. Hit that subscribe button right now. This channel isn't letting bad math get away again.